The first is checkmate by en passant. First, let's recall what that is. It's when our pawn crosses into the opponent's half of the board, and the opponent moves their pawn 2 squares forward, passing a square controlled by our pawn, giving us the opportunity to capture it en passant. But can you imagine actually delivering checkmate with this move? The probability of that happening is just 0.1%. This might happen at most once in 1,000 games. But even Magnus Carlsen himself once lost to such a checkmate. Magnus is playing with the black pieces, and it seems like he has an extra pawn. Things aren't looking too bad. The pawn on e5 is under attack, but everything seems secure here. But then Magnus gets hit with something completely unexpected. He gets hit with the move rook to h5, after which he has to play either bishop to h6, which is basically admitting defeat, or if he takes on h5, white gives a check on e4. And after the move e5, white can capture en passant with either the e-pawn or the g-pawn, but only capturing with the pawn from e5 delivers checkmate. And so Magnus Carlsen himself ended up getting checkmated in this extremely rare way, by an en passant capture. Be sure to write in the comments if you've ever delivered such a checkmate yourself. The second one is a checkmate without any captures. Actually, pulling this off probably isn't that difficult. For example, the simplest checkmate without any captures that can occur is the fool's mate after the moves f3, g4, and then queen to h4. But the challenge with this kind of checkmate is that if both opponents play reasonably well, it's very hard to finish a game without any captures at all. I even did a challenge. There was a video on the channel about delivering this kind of checkmate, and I managed to pull it off. But for that, you really need a lot of specific conditions. Here I'm just showing you an example that, well, it's actually possible, but only if your opponent is really playing nonsense, and then you can deliver a checkmate without a single capture, or as it's also called, a peaceful mate. The third is the legal's mate. It's a very rare pattern that occurs in chess, named after the French chess player who first used this combination and checkmated his opponent. I think everyone has heard of it, but I'll show it again. The point is that in this position, we sacrifice the knight on e5. And now if they take it, we capture the opponent's bishop. And for example, after the moves knight to e5, queen to h5, knight to c4, queen to b5, we win back the knight and we simply have a winning position with an extra pawn right out of the opening. But if black takes our queen, which we left under attack, then in that case we strike with bishop to f7, king to a7, and after knight to d5, it's a beautiful checkmate. And the black king has absolutely no way to move anywhere. Fourth, checkmate with castling. If you have a girl you like, or you're already in a relationship, or maybe even married, be sure to tell her, if she knows how to play chess, that the game I'm about to show you is as beautiful as your life partner. a4, e5, we play the king's gambit. Bishop to c4, g5. Black defends the pawn, we play knight to f3, g4. We capture on f7. A brilliant move, luring the opponent's king forward. Knight to f5, check, queen to g4, check, king to e5. d4, luring the king even further. Before we want to place the bishop on b2 and attack the black king. They capture with the bishop, giving check. We play c3, bishop takes c3, knight takes c3, king takes c3. Bishop to b2, check. King to b2, queen to e2, check. Black takes the rook on a 1, and we castle and checkmate black with the castling move. This is simultaneously a checkmate with the king and a checkmate by castling. Checkmate by castling is also very rarely seen in chess. And I also did this challenge on my channel, and in one of the videos delivered such a checkmate. The next checkmate is, of course, with a bishop and a knight. Why is this checkmate rare? Because reaching such a position happens extremely rarely. As a result of a fierce battle in the middle game, eventually a final position arises where one side has only a knight and a bishop, and we have to checkmate the opponent's king. Many people don't even know how to do this, don't understand it, and don't try to figure it out. And in the end, if they end up in such a position, they won't be able to win. Our first stage is to at least drive the opponent's king somewhere. Usually this isn't too difficult to do. But then we need to force the king into the corner that matches the color of our bishop, and that's already harder to accomplish. The algorithm is as follows. We start gradually maneuvering the knight in a W shape, so to speak, and push the opponent's king back. we also need the bishop to drive the opponent's king off this particular square. And gradually, we push him toward the h8 square. At some point, it might seem like the king is about to escape and that we have no chance to checkmate him. But since our knight controls the f5 and g6 squares and our king controls e5, we play bishop to e3, king to f7, bishop to g5, king to e8, king to e6. And then we bring the bishop back, placing it on a7, pushing the king even further back. And with this simple algorithm, we gradually bring our king in, make a waiting move with the bishop, and deliver checkmate to our opponent. If you want a more detailed algorithm and a separate video on how to checkmate with a bishop and knight, you definitely know what to do. Support this video with a like and let me know in the comments. The sixth is checkmate with the king, which also happens extremely rarely, if only because after we move the king, we need to open up a piece that will attack the opponent's king and deliver mate. The king by itself cannot deliver checkmate. We discussed castling, right? Where you could also say that the king delivers checkmate. But in this situation, after we capture on e5 with the king, we open up our dark squared bishop, the king takes away the e6 square, and a checkmating pattern appears on the board. The seventh is checkmate with the starting position, a mate named after, I believe, the Canadian Grandmaster Hambleton, who is also, by the way, a well-known streamer and blogger. Checkmate from the starting position. How can you arrange it so that all the pieces are on their original squares, but the opponent's king is checkmated? First of all, you need to have a lot of passed pawns from the start, and your opponent must not resign. You gradually place all the pieces back on their original squares carefully, making sure not to stalemate. And after that, you start the following algorithm. Queen to e2, queen to g2, and gradually after moving the rook to f3, you begin to push the opponent's king back. Next, we place the rook on f6, move the queen to f8, and put the rook on d6. This is essential. And then to d8. All of this is necessary to skillfully push the opponent's king so that he ends up on b4. And so that he has, so that all squares except b4 and b3 are unavailable to him. After that, we move our rook to square h1. And finally, after the move queen to d6, we take away the b4 square. The only thing the black king can do is go to square c2, and we deliver checkmate on d1. This is an extremely rare checkmate. But if you manage to pull this off in your own game, you'll remember it for the rest of your life. Be sure to support this video with a like and a comment if you enjoyed it. See you soon.